everybody, welcome back. Gerald here with your weather forecast. Hope you're having a wonderful Sunday. A lot to talk about today, but I'm going to try to keep this video relatively short because I am quite busy today. So I'm not going to go super in depth today, but tomorrow's video will be much more in depth. But I'm definitely going to give you a rundown of what to expect this week with that ice storm that is looking more and more likely that will hit that ice storm criteria into sections of the southern plains and through the Ohio River Valley and potentially even in sections of the mid-Atlantic over the next couple of days into this week. But with all that said, if you're new here, welcome. My name's Gerald. I'm a meteorology major at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. And if you do like the video, I'd love for you to hit that like button. And we're getting very close to 1,000 subscribers now. We were just at 700 a couple days ago, and we're now quickly approaching 800. So super exciting stuff. And I'd love for you to join us here in this kind of journey that we are on. With all that said, though, let's go ahead and get right into it because, like I said, I do want to keep this video relatively short. So, looking at current radar here, this is that rain we've been talking about that is moving through the southeast currently, and that will continue through tonight and even into Monday for most of us. And then after that, that's whenever we have that icing potential here into sections of the southern plains, which we are definitely going to spend a lot of time talking about. Looking at our current hazards, you can see we do have some flash flood watches down here into portions of Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, even some flash flood warnings because of that rain that has been ongoing. But more importantly, we have winter weather advisories and even some winter storm watches up for sections of Oklahoma and Texas here for that ice that is going to begin really within the next 48 hours or so. So looking at today's temperatures, you can see this Arctic boundary has continued to dive south throughout the day today, and that is setting up the stage, I guess, if you will, for that ice to begin going into tomorrow. So you'll see as temperatures have warmed this afternoon for most of us here in the southeast, it's actually gotten colder throughout the day for sections of Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, as this Arctic boundary continues to work its way south and east with those brutally cold temperatures that are definitely cold enough to produce that ice and a little bit of snow for some of us, but mainly an ice event here to talk about. So looking at tonight's low temperatures, again, you can see this freezing line setting up here, and that is what is going to set up this ice storm potential. Very well-defined boundary here between the southeast ridge and this warmer air mass tonight, as well as this Arctic cold Canadian air to the north and east of that southeast ridge. And as we've been talking about, that is really what is leading to this icing potential, is this warm air and this cold air fighting it out. And whenever they do that on top of each other and rain falls, that's when you get big problems. And that's what I think we will have here going into this week. So tomorrow is whenever this will likely get underway, especially into tomorrow evening here through sections of Texas, Oklahoma, and we'll talk about that. But tomorrow during the afternoon, look at this southeast ridge flexing over here, and you're getting temperatures up into the 60s here for late January. That is super pleasant weather for a lot of us here into the Carolinas and other sections of the southeast. As we hold on to this warm air for at least a little bit longer, but I think that changes going later into this weekend. So setting up the stage here for you, right now we do have that rain moving through the southeast. That continues through this evening and even into tomorrow morning. Expect some rain showers, especially out here into Georgia and the Carolinas, still holding on to that rain. But as we get into tomorrow afternoon, we clear out somewhat here into the southeast and mid-Atlantic from those showers, but that's whenever this ice is going to begin into sections of Texas and Oklahoma. So I do expect this to be a bit more widespread than you see here currently on the Euro model, but anybody here into sections of northern Texas and throughout Oklahoma that sees any precipitation fall tomorrow will likely be in the form of freezing rain or sleet. So we're going to watch for that definitely. And then going into tomorrow evening, that first kind of round here is going to move through sections of Missouri, northern Arkansas, and then going into the overnight Monday and into Tuesday morning, pushing up through sections of Kentucky, potentially even Tennessee, and then through the northern mid-Atlantic. But after that happens, don't let your guard down because that's just round one. We then get round two that I think will be more robust. And we'll talk a lot about this tomorrow, and we'll go more in depth with our mesoscale models tomorrow. But we're going to get a much more robust round of that icing going into Tuesday morning, starting out here into sections of Texas. And then that's really going to ramp up into sections of Oklahoma during the afternoon Tuesday, This is whenever I think we have the best chance of maybe a little bit of snow into portions of Oklahoma and Texas, just because that precipitation will work its way far enough into that Arctic mass that that cold air is going to win out against the warm air and produce a little bit of snow, although I don't think anything major. But what will be pretty major is this ice. So a place like Oklahoma City, I'm super worried about that. Down here into sections, especially to the north and west of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, seeing some of that icing. And then this more robust wave continues into Arkansas. And I'll tell you one thing, in Arkansas here, it is definitely uptrended in terms of your impacts there. Originally looked like maybe just the northern sliver of Arkansas would see these impacts. Now these impacts look more widespread throughout pretty much the upper half of Arkansas. So Little Rock, who kind of got snubbed last week when you were dealing with that like 35-degree rain, could be more of a wintry scene in a place like Little Rock going into Tuesday afternoon. And then that wave continues up into places of Tennessee, and this is what I'm really getting concerned about here. Going into Tuesday night, we have a lot of precipitation to work with here across the southern tier of the United States. And if this block of moisture were to move north just 50, 100 miles, which oftentimes it does in the last second here, these air masses like to trend northwest with that precipitation, we could have a big stretch of the country here dealing with some of that icing potential. So this would then be round 3 for a lot of us into Texas, and you can see that icing potential continuing here in these pink areas of Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, once again on Wednesday getting that third round. And you can see that kind of turned to rain here, but I wouldn't be too confident in that here. This likely is still freezing rain falling for a lot of us through sections of Texas, Oklahoma, northern Arkansas here going into Wednesday. And then that precipitation hangs around before finally trying to clear out going into Thursday afternoon here. You see that beginning here, much drier conditions throughout Texas and Oklahoma and Arkansas. We will likely thaw out a bit as well. But then that kind of precipitation begins to move through the southeast, and I think mostly rain right now for our folks here from Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and the Carolinas. But if this air mass, or this precipitation, I should say, pushes up further to the northwest, we could run into some icing problems or maybe even a little bit of snow in a place like Virginia with kind of this last batch of moisture that we're working with before we finally clear out going into Friday evening and Saturday afternoon. And then as for this weekend, you've probably heard a lot about people talking about the potential for some kind of coastal storm here to impact the southeast. And what I will say right now is nothing is set in stone. In fact, most of the models don't show that right now. But if we can get some kind of precipitation to work here into a place like the Carolinas, we will have sufficient enough cold air to work with this weekend. And we'll touch on that a little bit later, but we're going to go way more in depth with that tomorrow as well. So make sure that you come back tomorrow for a more in-depth look at that threat. So looking here at this temperature boundary, you can see throughout this week, this is really going to hang around, and a lot of us are going to be stuck right at or below freezing throughout the week. Although I think during the afternoon hours of much of these days, we do get above freezing for a lot of these places through Texas, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, especially going into Wednesday and Thursday, getting above that freezing mark before warming up again this weekend. Overall, as this Arctic air mass then dives down into the northeast. And you'll see we do have that chance of dangerous cold in the northeast as well this weekend. As we go into Saturday morning here, look at these temperatures below zero in a place like Boston getting below zero, just about the entire state of New York outside of maybe Long Island below zero, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maine getting places up here close to 30 below as your actual temperature. So we're definitely going to watch for that this weekend as this Arctic air mass begins to work further off to the north and east, and we get relief here in the southern plains to help melt any of that leftover ice or snow. Okay, so that was the kind of model forecast here, showing those potentials for snowfall. We'll touch on this. We'll start with our Euro ensembles here. So you can see the best chances for that will first come going into Tuesday afternoon, and that chance of seeing snow accumulate, it's going to be a very thin pathway to see that, just because you need that moisture to get far enough north that it interacts with cold enough air throughout all the layers of the atmosphere to produce snow instead of sleet or freezing rain. So I do think we'll have a very thin corridor here through sections of northern Texas, central northern Oklahoma, extreme northern Arkansas, southern Missouri that has, an inch or two of snow accumulate out of this. And you can see you get kind of multiple rounds of that through a lot of the same areas here throughout this week. And then those of us that have been hearing about a coastal storm, this is the signal right now in terms of snowfall. You can see not much to talk about with that right now. So that's the Euro ensembles. Let me show you the GFS ensembles now. And you can see once again, a lot of places, a very slim path of seeing those chances of snow. And then as for a weekend storm, again here in the Carolinas, really pretty much a goose egg right now is what we are looking at. So in terms of total snowfall, this is our blend of models, so all of our models put together, and you might be wondering, what snow are you talking about? Because here you see a whole lot of nothing. Now, I will say, I think we overperform this. I do think we get a stretch kind of through this general area that likely sees 1 to 3 inches of snow, but really those of us that see snow, it looks a lot more like a dusting just because we're lacking some of that moisture, and I do think that ice threat will be way more of a problem. And that is very evident here as you see our National Weather Service blend of models here. You can see that big icing potential here into sections of central Texas. Really, I think gets the highest numbers out of this, but also we've uptrended here in a place like Little Rock and Memphis, so we'll have to watch that trend as well for some of that icing potential. So right here you see, once we get past 1/10 of an inch, that's whenever you run into problems. So that looks pretty widespread here into Arkansas, sections of western Tennessee, southern Oklahoma, and much of central Texas also looks to get on that. Once you get past 1/4 of an inch, where we're seeing isolated spots here, that's whenever you get into ice storm warning criteria. And that's whenever you have power outage problems, widespread travel issues, and plenty of other problems to worry about. So right now, I do think the greatest chance of seeing that here is going to be in central Texas, and places especially to the west and north of the Dallas-Fort Worth metro. So I have seen some people ask questions about this compared to February 2021, which I know is a super crazy event throughout this section of the country. So obviously a lot of people get concerned whenever we see this icing potential and these cold temperatures. What I will say is this likely won't be very close to that, just because the duration and the extremity of this, I guess, won't meet that level, but we will have multiple days of this icing threat, although temperatures will be much closer to freezing, so not nearly as dangerous of a cold, and I think we will thaw out going later into the weekend, so those impacts shouldn't carry on nearly as long. And then also in a place like Texas, there'll be plenty of sections here of southeast Texas that just don't see those impacts. So this will be much more localized than February 2021 was. So with all that said, hopefully you enjoyed the video. I know this was kind of a quick one and a bit of a rundown, but I'm very busy today. So if you have any questions that I didn't cover, feel free to ask me in the comments. I will try to get back to you as soon as I can. And tomorrow's video will likely be much more in-depth, and we'll go way more into our mesoscale models, way more into the ensembles, as this event will be starting tomorrow. So I'll give you kind of a up-to-date event and kind of my final forecast, I guess, if you will, for this entire event from a beginning standpoint. But we're going to be talking about this all of next week, so that's why you should definitely make sure that you're staying tuned. So if you do end up subscribing, make sure you hit the bell to get those notifications, because I do upload daily, and I want you to stay in the loop. But with all of that said, I hope you all have had a wonderful weekend and have a great, safe start to your week, and I will see you all tomorrow.